Previously on Geezerology 2.0, we're going to have a look at The French Connection. Gene Hackman won Best Actor for this, William Friedkin, back in 1971. Hello, everybody. We're back looking at some Best Picture winners from the past. The French Connection won the big prize at the 44th Academy Awards. This was from 1971. This also won the Best Actor Oscar for Gene Hackman and pretty much put rocket fuel in his career. William Friedkin won as Best Director, and the film also got wins for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Editing. Now, this movie was one that I saw in high school. I was a senior in high school, and this thing knocked my socks off. And I've always just held this movie in reverence pretty much my entire life. I've seen it 2 or 3 times in the past, but I haven't watched it in probably 15 or 20 years. But I had another look at it this week. My takeaway from it this time was how 1970s this was, right? Because this is pretty much the prototype of every 1970s cop action movie that came along behind it. This thing was just entirely shot in the streets of New York. There were a couple of scenes in France. There was one scene, I think, in the National Mall in D.C., but no sound stages here. Everything was on the streets, and it was gritty and grimy as hell. I mean, you could just smell and taste the grittiness and the piss and the garbage and everything in the streets. I mean, this thing was just rooted in the streets of New York. Great cinematography coming into it cold for the first time in a long time. It was just astounding at how great this movie looked and how gritty it was. If you're not familiar with it, it's about 2 cops who are on a narcotics squad, and they end up getting wind of a big shipment of heroin coming in from France, and they go about and spend their time hunting this down and taking down a couple of big importers. It's based on a book that was written about a real life case, but all the names have been changed. The story is pretty much rewritten and fictionalized. So, it won Best Adapted Screenplay, but what you see in the movie doesn't have a whole lot of basis in fact. So we'll just get that out of the way right now. It's just a good, solid cop movie from the early 70s. And yeah, this thing was great. I enjoyed the hell out of it. But Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you because I have a question for you.
Okay.
Did you stop picking your feet long enough to watch this movie this week?
Okay, this one I watched all the way through without stopping. Okay, so um, yes, Scott, no feet picking while I was watching it. I have to echo some of the things you said. I saw this film for the first time in the theaters when I was in high school. Loved it, have revered it, have watched it several times, over the ensuing decades. The last time I watched it before this time, it struck me also about the setting of the film. And I was just looking at it going like, my God, New York City is just a pigsty, And yeah, and watching
Which it was back in the late 60s, early 1970s, right?
But yeah, so watching it this time, just yesterday, I was really impressed with the realism of the film. It's shot on location. They shot it on location in France, in Washington, D.C., in New York. It just even though it's highly fictionalized, it felt real. This just looks real. It almost feels a little bit like a documentary, because so yeah, I really admired the realistic settings, the way it was filmed, the cinematography. All of that is fantastic. The acting is top notch. And like you said, yeah, this, catapulted Gene Hackman's career. And Roy Scheider as his cop partner also turned in a great performance. One of the great actors of the 70s and
This
80s.
this pretty much got his career on track too,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
it's like based on this because he was so well on this, and he ended up getting Jaws a few years later. You
yeah.
know,
This is a 70s movie, absolutely. And one thing that I noticed this time around was what I consider to be racism. They throw the N word around. At one point in the film, there's a very derogatory term used for Hispanics. There's a scene where the two cops go into a bar that's full of African American men, and they're slamming them up against the wall and doing all kinds of illegal searches and stuff. And maybe that was the way they policed in the early 70s in New York. I don't know. But it just was struck me as almost racist this time around. And all of the low level, criminals that they're chasing in this film are all black. The sophisticated um, sophisticated crooks are all white. That just kind of grated on me this time around. So that I guess I would
yeah.
look at that as a little bit of warning if you're watching this movie for the first time. That may impact on you. Secondly, and maybe it's because when I'm watching these movies this time around, I'm doing it a little bit more critically because we're doing these reviews. I felt there were a couple plot holes here, and that it's a little lacking, I think, now in character development because there are several times when Popeye Doyle, the character played by Gene Hackman, the lead detective here, there's a conflict between him and some other cops because they keep talking about how he caused the death of a police officer, through one of your wild hunches. But that never really got explored or explained what happened. And Hackman is very driven in this film. I mean, his character is just totally obsessed with making this bust. And, we don't know whether that's just who he is or is he doing it because he's trying to atone for the past mistake. So a little character development, I think, would have helped this film tremendously. Watching it this time, it almost felt like they just didn't know how to end the film because it's a very abrupt ending and it leaves a lot of stuff hanging.
One thing it was in reality, the guy got away. They couldn't find the guy, and
But
and also on that point, uh, there was a sequel a few years later called The French Connection 2, which I have never seen. Uh, but but I know that Gene Hackman and Aldo Ray, who plays the French bad guy here, are also in the sequel. So apparently the sequel uh, picks up the chase of the guy who got away. Yeah.
I think I have seen French Connection too, but if I have, it's been a long time ago and I do not remember anything of the movie. So that's going to be on my go ahead and watch list. So those are just things that I picked up on this time around. I still think it's a marvelous film, but I do have some nitpicky stuff about it now.
Yeah. Bill, do you have a background with this one, or was this a first time watch for you?
I have a background as well. I This is the first time I've seen it though in 55 years. So I saw it when I was 11 years old. My father took me to the movie theater downtown to see it because he'd been told that it was a anti-drug movie, and he was, trying to inculcate my awareness and aversion to drugs. And I think, looking back at it, he would have been better served to take me to see Panic in Needle Park with Al Pacino and all about heroin dealing and the actual issues of what happens when you take heroin in 1971, as opposed to this movie, because all this movie made me want to do was go to New York City. Because I thought, the star of this movie, of course, is Hackman, but the co-star is New York. It's all about New York to me because of not just the way it looks, which is, as you guys have said, I mean, it is gritty down at the heels, even if you're going up and down Midtown, things look grimy and very, very depressing. Part of it, of course, is that it's, as you said, it's shot on location, but it's shot during the winter and it is cold as heck. And I happen to have watched it when we are going through one of our coldest periods here in our own winter, and it really resonated with me. I thought, one of the key things about this movie is, relating to character development. I think Bob's point is valid. There aren't really many instances where you get a sense of what these guys are like, except in Popeye's case. I mean, all he cares about is the job, and the job is getting bad guys. Whatever it takes to do it is what he's going to do. And of course, a lot of the tropes that people are now familiar with, they're kind of cliched, where you've got the angry boss who's always, at the end of his rope and barely can tolerate his detectives because they're, either countermanding his instructions or, they're not bringing enough busts or whatever it is. So we have that situation. We've got Roy Schneider, who is barely better than Hackman in terms of following procedures, but he also is, pretty much, his wingman and doing whatever it takes to get things done. One of the critical things we haven't talked about is, a chase scene that Bill Hickman, who is one of the greatest stunt drivers in Hollywood history, famous for the bullet chase scene with Steve McQueen in '68. Here he also is, responsible for kind of setting up this major linchpin in the movie. It is probably, one of the most exciting 5 minutes you'll ever see. And if people talk about the French Connection, that's generally what they're referring to. They think about this thing.
I remember back in 1971 that was the big buzz of this movie. It was one of the greatest chase scenes ever filmed. Always comparing it to the Steve McQueen chase.
Yes, I would say. I mean, this one is even better because I think. I mean, and I love the McQueen one, but this, the way it was shot, and which I learned subsequently, is that they never had permits to do exactly what they were doing. They had cooperation of the police department, but they didn't get the permitting necessary to do it the legitimate way. They would just close off parts of the street underneath the elevated, and then run this through in a very, it had all been storyboarded to within an inch of its life, but in many cases there was real traffic going on around what was happening, and it was quite insane. The ambiguity of the ending is, it's kind of a piece. Really, the coda to me is the actual closing, which is all of the different characters involved end up, slightly diminished or getting off scot-free. So because of the trouble that Popeye and Cloudy have caused, they get dropped from the narcotic squad temporarily. Almost everybody who's arrested gets off with, a couple of suspended sentences or a year or two. The craziest one is the poor French producer whose Lincoln Continental it is that is used as kind of the mule to get the heroin into Manhattan, is the guy who actually serves the longest term in prison. And so the whole thing is, it kind of makes sense that, the drug lord escapes and he, makes his cameo back in the French Connection too. I have to say, to me, as I said, the stars are clearly the city and Hackman. Schneider's fantastic. The pace of the movie doesn't let up. So it's not only is the chase, kind of, as I said, the pillar of the movie, but on both sides, it's nonstop forward motion. So it's not necessarily action all the time. It's just that things keep happening and they happen fast. And Friedkin does a great job of catching, how cops, do their job, how they trail and track suspects, and how they, to one extent or another, exercise their authority to try to get the information necessary to make the arrests that they view as view as being view as being important.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, I just see this now as just a great action movie, you know. Um, yeah, the thing about the character development that didn't bother me because that's just back in the day. That's how they made characters. That's just you're just seeing them at this point in time. But that's okay. That didn't bother me so much. What did bother me, what kept striking me was the last 5 years since George Floyd, we've all become uh, more educated and more aware of what good policing is should be all about. Yeah, there was not any good policing in this movie, and I took it as more just a fictional character based novel than really any kind of serious police procedural. There's nothing wrong with this movie. You just have to accept some of these problems that you see now with 2020 hindsight. This came out in a period as it was just the beginning. Well, it was in the middle. It really kind of started in the late 60s, but late 60s through the late 70s for about 10 years was just such a fertile time for cinemas, and this was a classic from that era. It's definitely the movie of its time. It looks and smells and tastes and feels like a 1970s action cop movie, but it's a top-notch action cop movie, and it's definitely a classic. I'm giving it a 4. My heart wanted to give it a 4.5. I know it's not a perfect movie, and I tried to give it a 4.5, but I just couldn't. I have to go with a 4 with it. I love it, and it's a classic, but those things that I notice watching it now, it just hasn't aged very well. So I can't go that high. I have to go a 4.
Before I watched it this most recent time, I would have gone close to a 4.5 or a 5. But I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go 4. I have watching it around. There were some things that didn't age well, and I see some plot holes too. So I'm going to go with a 4.
this is a 4, a solid 4. This is great, a great movie. I really enjoyed it. You know, as I said before, you could watch it with the 7-Ups. You can also watch it because Ernest Tidyman, who was the script writer, also wrote the script for Shaft, and that also came out in '71. I mean, you can watch these movies kind of as a panoramic view of police activity, criminal activity in New York in the early '70s, and yeah, they're dated in a certain way. There's a lot of that kind of racism that really is probably the most shocking thing of all to a modern viewer. I mean, it was the most noticeable thing to me. But overall, I think that the movie holds up remarkably well. It's a great piece of work, you know, on behalf of everybody involved. The director, Friedkin, goes on, of course, to do The Exorcist. I mean, he really put this thing together, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah, this is a masterpiece. There's no question about it. It's just the age factor that tamps down the current rating. Okay, gang. Well, that's our take on A French Connection. We are all pretty much in lockstep on this one. It's a great movie. It's a 4 movie, and I know that Letterboxd also has this rated as a 4. So there's not any controversy here. So we have one more best picture that we're going to get to. Stay tuned and you'll see what's coming up, and we'll see you next time. So long. Next week on Geezerology 2.0. Okay, one more best picture for this month, and let's spin the wheel to see what we're going to look at next week. We're going to be watching and talking about All the King's Men. That was a Bob pick. Bob, what year was that?
1949.
1949. Okay, so that's what we're going to watch next week, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you soon. So long. Did you enjoy this video? If so, please smash that subscribe button and drop a comment to let us know what you think about the movie we just discussed. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on Geezerology 2.0.